All right, everybody. Juan Morales here, and in this episode, what we're going to cover is a concept I like to call X versus first X. And let me tell you where this comes from. A couple of weeks ago, I had a class with a bunch of students, and they were thinking about what to build their business around. What was their idea going to become? And one thing I noticed is how much pressure they were putting on themselves because it had to be right. The first time they did it, it just had to be right. So a lot of them had been stuck in that step for a while. I'm talking months and even years, because they keep looking for a moment where everything lines up and it just becomes the perfect idea. So what we do mentally is that we put all the pressure on getting it right the first time, almost as if it was an answer that we're putting into a test and we can't get it wrong. But here's the truth. It doesn't really matter how you start, because that's going to be the first idea. And when you get that first idea, that'll lead you to the second idea, and then to the third idea, and so on and so forth. If you're waiting to instantly get to that 20th idea or whatever, it just never will happen, because the idea reveals itself as you explore the ones that are previously needed in order to get to that new level. And there's tons of companies that have signified throughout times these pivots, these changes that they do of the ideas. Nintendo, for example, was a playing card manufacturer from the 1950s. But then in the 1980s, they became a video game console company. Think about it. If they hadn't gone through the first motions of putting products out, developing the intellectual property, developing all the things that they needed to in order to get it working, they would have never gotten to that video game console business. So next time you're doing something, and next time you're thinking of, let's say, putting out a new product, putting out a new service, putting out a new business, whatever the thing may be, don't put yourself under the pressure of it has to work the first time. Always think of it as though that's just the first attempt that you're doing at it. You're going to learn from it, and you're going to use your market to give you feedback. See, the root of all of this is that we want to get feedback from our own minds. We want to outdo our own idea, and that creates an impossible loop, because the moment the idea is better, we will always outdo it. So then we're stuck in that perfectionism loop, or we're stuck in one of these paralysis by analysis loops. Instead, you want to think of this as this is the first try, you're going to put it out there, and you're going to get feedback from the only people that you should care about getting feedback from, which is your market. Nobody else. The market is the one that will ultimately determine whether your product, your service, your idea is a success or it isn't. So the faster you can get those ideas out there and get them in front of the right people, in front of the people that you're looking for, and you get some feedback on that, the easier everything in the process will become. Don't think that you need to get it perfect, because you don't. In fact, the most powerful thing is to understand that this is an ongoing process. This is the ongoing process that happens in the software development world. They call it the alpha stages and the beta stages, before a product is actually ready to roll out to the public. And many products have nowadays stayed in beta for a long time, because all they really want to do is get that feedback from the market so you can make the product better. Nobody expects you nowadays to show up with a perfect product right from the beginning. That just doesn't happen. We all know what it takes. We've all been a beta tester of something. We've all been involved in projects at the early stage. So think about that. Think about those people in your market, in your industry, that are those early adopters, those that are the first to test something, and focus on getting them on board. Don't focus on that bigger, massive win of getting thousands and thousands of people to buy your stuff. Focus on the few that will get you started, that will give you that feedback that's going to help you enhance what you're doing. And it's a much better way of enhancing what you're doing than to try to do it from your own mind while you sit down with your ideas and you keep writing and writing, or mapping out different scenarios and so on and so forth. Let them run with it. Let your market try it out. And I call this X versus first X, because every time I'm talking to someone and they say, oh yeah, we're going to go out and put out our product, I would say, oh yeah, we're going to go out and put out our first product. And by just adding that first at the beginning, it implies immediately that there's a second, a third, a fourth version of that. Another way of saying this, which is another way that I like to say it, is version 1 makes money too. Which is the idea that even an incomplete product, even a product that's only 80% or even 50% of what you expect it to be eventually, once you have it fully fleshed out, can still make a difference for the right people and can still be desirable to the right people inside of your audience, because they're going to look at it and they're going to enjoy it as is. And they know that there's going to be updates and they know that it will get better over time. But don't sit on it for a long time just waiting for it to be perfect, because it won't happen. And don't believe your mind when it keeps telling you that you should keep improving on something, really, because what you're afraid of is that feedback. And the problem is, and this is what really compounds it, the problem is the more we work on it, the more the expectations are high that it's going to be accepted. So in a way, it creates its own problem. The more you work on it, the more you invested in it, the less you want it to fail. Now, I had that experience myself. I launched a product that I pushed the launch date on it twice. Something that's unheard of in the marketplace that I'm in. And I pushed it twice. I kept saying that it was because I needed to add some more stuff to it. But in reality, I knew that what was really going on is that I was scared of it not performing the way I wanted it to perform. But what I realized was the more features I added to it, the more of a fool I would look if it didn't pan out. So eventually, when we did release it and it was a blockbuster product and it did set my whole business up, the first time it came out, it wasn't great. But then the clients started telling us what needed to happen. And as long as we kept that attitude of, hey, listen, of course, thank you. I'm happy to get that feedback. I'm happy to do more things to make this better. Then I started working with the market, not for the market, but with the market. And that's really something crucial to your business, to always understand that when it comes to these kinds of things, you don't want to think of the product. You want to think of the first product. So when in doubt, you add the first at the beginning. That's why I call this X versus first X. That change makes a huge difference for everybody. And when I'm working with my clients and we're in a production meeting and we're creating a new product or we're creating a new service or anything like that, there's a point where we just literally have to say, listen, this is going to be the first version. We're just going to put it out with that. Because what ends up happening is, because of this thing of adding more stuff to it, we immediately go and add stuff that is not readily available for us. So now we have to go and develop this other piece of software, or now we have to go and develop this other training that doesn't even exist. Instead of saying, hey, those things are all great, but we can do them later. Or we can even sell them with a future date of when it really happens, or when that event happens live, or when that training becomes live, or whatever. But the most important thing to do is to put it out there and let the market give you that feedback. Now, when you're getting that feedback, of course, it's a scary thing, because there's going to be people that don't like it. And by nature, we don't like people not liking us. But the fact of the matter is, for every one person that doesn't like it, if you did your job well and if it is a good product, you're going to have other people that like it and give you suggestions on how to improve it. Then there's going to be the people that don't like it and give you suggestions on how to improve it. And then there's going to be the people that don't like it and don't give any suggestions, and those people don't really care about those. For you, the task at hand is to get that feedback as fast as possible. Once you get that feedback from the market, you're going to understand how it's landing, what needs it's actually fulfilling, and how is it better than the other options out there on the marketplace. But the point is, if you take off the pressure by, instead of saying X, you say first X, first service, first product, first market, first attempt. Instead of thinking of one attempt, you think that this is my first attempt. That means there's going to be a second one. There's going to be a third one. So when in doubt, always go to X versus first X. And I guarantee you, you're going to start feeling a lot of that pressure dissipate very quickly from your efforts. Because immediately you're going to realize how much pressure you were putting on yourself to get that done the first time as though there were no second time, or third time, or fourth time, where you can pivot, you can improve, and you can ultimately upgrade the experiences that your clients have based on their own feedback. Don't confuse someone chapter 22 with your chapter 2. If you look back and look at Facebook, Amazon, all these big companies nowadays, even Google, there's pictures online that you can go and see what Google looked like when it launched. And it doesn't look anything like it does now. Imagine if they had just stopped then, not put it out then because it wasn't perfect. And then they wouldn't have had that pole position that they have now in the search engine market. So again, X versus first X. Always think that this is the first version of something. There's going to be a second one, and a third one, and a fourth one, and a fifth one. And what you're going to find is that your market gets even more engaged with you with the feedback that you're getting from them. And one thing I've found, and it's profound really to understand this, is once someone gives you a suggestion and you implement that, you have a client for that product for life. And it's because they feel invested in the product and the outcomes. And now they can give you more feedback. So in a way, your best fans are the ones that are going to give you the feedback. Don't see the feedback as criticism. See it as constructive. See it as them really going out on a limb for you to try to give you their best thinking of what would serve them best. And then give them that. So remember, X versus first X. This is Juan Morales signing out. I'll see you on the next one.